Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 10th special meeting of Council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. And I just want to tell everyone tonight that this is a budget meeting, so there'll be ample time for people in the audience to ask questions, and thank you all for coming. Mr. Figuera, we have a staff presentation, so Mr. Figuera, would you please give us the background on the issue regarding the proposed downtown pedestrian wayfinding project, and welcome Ms. Bottomley from the Parksville Downtown Business Association, the Executive Director. So over to both of you.
If I may, Your Worship, I'd like to welcome Pam Bottomley from the PDBA. She's going to be sitting in as well to provide some additional information for you or answer questions that you may have. This presentation is in response to Council Resolution 17-070, which was confirmed during the March 15th, 2017 Special Council Budget Meeting. At this meeting, Council was being asked to approve funding for a wayfinding program, and the resolution was as follows, just to kind of recap to get everybody on the same page. That the funding request for Parksville Downtown Business Association wayfinding project be referred to planning, operations, and engineering staff for input on future infrastructure and maintenance costs and long-term impact on capital projects. And there was one member from the public that had some, supportive comments, and another one that had some non-supportive comments from the public. So. On that basis, staff have assisted the PDBA in clarifying for Council a phased project approach that's designed to be informative, accountable, inclusive, with the intent to give Council, the public, and staff the best understanding of what is being proposed and what the expected costs will be. At the end of the presentation, there'll be clarification will be provided as to the amount and timing of city funds that are being requested to support the project. So I'll just head right into the presentation. So first of all, Pam is going to talk a little bit about the first couple of slides, and the first one is to do with the wayfinding system itself, just to kind of set the stage for the rest of the presentation.
Just a little context for the content. For people who haven't been following this as closely as I have for the last few years. Everyone has come to the conclusion that connectivity and accessibility, especially between the downtown commercial core and the community park, and longitudinally between our nodes and neighborhoods downtown, is something that needs to be addressed. The 2006 Downtown Revitalization Plan that the city adopted basically was the genesis for our organization in the business improvement area. After the business improvement area concept was understood and by our volunteers, and the business community property owners got excited about that, they petitioned Council to set up the business improvement area and asked to be taxed to pay for what we do.
So one thing we thought is important for Council to understand is sort of the team structure. How is this project going to be carried forward? Who's going to be responsible for what? So this slide is just to give Council a general idea that, of course, on the left, the project lead is PDBA. Pam Bottomley is going to be the project lead. Pam is going to have the consultant, Stephen Sinclair, directly reporting to her for the remainder of the project, and also once it gets to that stage when a fabricator installer is determined from a tender process, that fabricator installer will be taking direction both from the project lead and the project manager. In terms of the city side, there's going to be some involvement required, and certainly it makes a lot of sense for this kind of a project to have a key contact in city staff to answer any of your questions throughout the project, to also understand the status of the project, any issues that are coming out. So council will have somebody working at the city that can be asked questions in case any issues come up. And certainly we're going to have, in terms of the rollout of the installation, we're going to need city inspector on site from time to time to ensure that the city bylaws are being followed in terms of placement of the signs. So that will be an ongoing sort of city scrutiny of the project as it's being installed. So that's what this slide is supposed to give you some comfort that, as you can see with the dashed line there, Tuomi and Pam really will be staying in contact on a regular basis throughout the project from here on in. So Pam is also going to give a few comments related to the system design.
Thanks, Vaughn. Just to refresh the background on the system design, as we presented it in November to you, this is based on international best practices that we first started researching in 2014 and presented to council at a council meeting in November 2015. It's not a business directory on posts. It's directional signage. It's a hierarchy of devices, including mapping, that get people to our retail and service nodes. As I said, we're quite spread out. It's not immediately obvious when you're walking around town, even where north is. So what we've developed is a list of BIA destinations that will be on the signage, and information kiosks and trail talkers, finger posts. Those destinations were listed in your assessment document that you got in November. Things like the Civic Center, the library, the community park, our key accommodations, our key shopping areas, etc. They're generic. They won't change on a weekly basis. They're not something that is going to have to be swapped out every 2 weeks when a business changes up. They're going to be focused on major destinations. Hopefully we'll have new and exciting destinations to add over time. The implementation strategy is part of that.
So what we're getting down to is an implementation plan, and what we've collaborated with the PDBA on is a way to move forward, as I said in the introduction, that's informative, accountable, inclusive, both to the council and the public. And that's what the next slide is. So this is identifying a step one. So the idea is that from this point forward, the project has been identified as being in 3 steps. Step 1 is actually complete. That's the work that's been done to date. That was part of the materials that were already produced in step 1. The city had invested $7,500 at that point, and the PDBA had put in $28,500 towards getting the project to where it is right now. And as you can see, as we are here, the project status confirmation, design assessment report, that was the product that was produced, the publication that was produced. So the 3 steps are: step 1, it's complete. It's the assessment and design report that was already done. From here on, the project moves into step 2, which is identified as program documentation, ongoing project management. Basically what this is getting to the point where the project is detailed down to the minutiae in terms of where are the signs going to be, what are they going to be made out of, what's the messaging going to be on the signs, the details down. Something that you would need before you can go to tender, obviously, to a contractor to get a quote. You need it detailed down fairly fine. And this also includes cost estimating update. So what you're seeing here is step 2 is to get to the point where, first of all, you can see the first item on the left is a public open house. So there's the opportunity now for the public to give input into the program to get included in the final product, the final detailed design. So the public will be involved in an event and be able to provide their input on what's being proposed. Also, you'll see down the line city staff workshop. So once the public has commented, once the consultant and Pam have gotten to the point where they've got the details down as to what they want to do, they bring it to staff, because ultimately staff are going to have to, and the city is going to have to maintain these signs. So we need to make sure that whatever's going to be proposed, the staff have had a chance to give their input. So then when it comes to the next report that PTA brings to council, council's able to ask, what has been the reaction from the public? What have they said? And how does the design address that? What about staff? What does staff say about this? It gives you the confidence that those steps have been taken into consideration in producing where this project is going to go. So that's all step 2. Sure, you can.
I just wanted to talk just quickly about the comment that there had been no public conversation around this as yet. That's because there is no project yet. But that's not to say that there has been no conversation around it in town with stakeholders, our members. It's been discussed in our annual report for 3 years, and that annual report has been on our homepage each year. So that conversation has been out there, but in terms of a formal consultation or feedback gathering process, no, that has not been done yet because we haven't had a project yet. We anticipate doing that in concert with the city. We're not looking for specific comments on design, but public will for sure have an idea of where the best place might be for certain kinds of mapping or other devices. So we look forward to getting that aspect covered off. In terms of staff consultation and involvement and reporting to council, I just want everyone to remember that we are accountable. I am accountable to my board of directors, and as a not-for-profit society, we're accountable on many levels for what we do. So there's multiple pieces of oversight involved. So what the consultant has done here as well is show that to complete step 2, which at the end involves a tender, it's going to cost $34,000 total. Now, just prior to the tender, there's going to be a council report. So once all these steps have been gone through, city staff have input, public have had some more input, a report will be coming to council, presented by the PDBA to inform of the progress to date, what the details are in terms of the design, and to get there, the PDBA is investing $14,000, and the city is being asked to invest $20,000 to get to that point. And then we go on to the next phase, is phase 3. That'll be once it gets past the tender, phase 3 is the fabrication installation. And correct me if I'm wrong, Pam, but the fabrication has been set up to proceed in 3 phases, and the 3 phases correspond to the years 2017, 18, and 19.
So at the end of the very last slide in the presentation will show you what the cash flow situation will be to fund this project. It identifies what is being asked in terms of budget and how the cash flow is going to proceed. So this is step 3, phase 1. So as I said, step 3 comes out in 3 phases. Step 1, or phase 1, is going to be the fabrication and installation work in 2017. So after the step 2 council report and tender process, then it'll get into step 3, which is the first phase of the fabrication installation. The contract will be awarded, the first point on the left. Then they'll start fabricating and getting the shop drawings together first. Again, talking to staff, city staff, about, because at that point that we'll be able to nail down exactly what materials are being proposed by the contractor in the event that they're different than the design, which happens at times. But the city staff will have some input at that point. And then once everything looks good, fabrication will start, and then rollout can happen. So there will be existing signs removed, new installations. Did you want to add anything for phase 1?
Yeah, I do. Okay. That will be, included in that will be a new banner program that will be installed in 2017.
So as you can see, at the end of phase 1, there is another council report. So there'll be another revisit to council, a report of the phase 1 of fabrication installation. It'll allow the council will have, at this point, observed what's going on out in the field. There'll potentially be some public that will comment. Those sorts of things can be addressed in phase 1 prior to funds being released for the next year, for 2018. So at the end of every phase, there's a council report, so you can have your feedback and be able to comment on how the project is rolling out and release the additional funds required to complete the project. So let's go on to phase 2. So similar efforts. This is just phase 2 of the rollout in 2018. Again, there's engineering shop drawings, city staff input, fabrication, and rollout. And again, at the end, a council report to identify the progress and how things went, and just kind of get a status update on the project. At that council report again, it will be the city will be asked to release funds for phase 3, which are coming in 2019. And then there's phase 3 in 2019, and you can see the breakdowns. PDBA 30,000, city 47,000 in 2019. So if you relate to a Gantt chart, this is the same representation, but in a Gantt chart format. You can see across the top is the dates, 2016, 2017. You can see step 1 on the left there is already complete, and step 2 is showing as project approval potentially tonight, depending on how council want to proceed. If that's the case, then it shows the rollout of step 2, and somewhere in the neighborhood of beginning of July would be a council report, and then after which a tender would occur for the fabrication and construction. This shows all of phase 3. So there's 2017, 18, and 19. This is the fabrication installation schedule showing all the steps, and you can see the council reports there on the bottom line at the end of each phase, identifying a request to roll out the associated funding for the phases. So as a summary, over the 3 years, 2017 to 19, total budget $265,000. PDBA is in for $97,000. City is being asked for $168,000. This slide here is just to give you the financial model. So Pam can add to my description of this. I'll just give you a general description of what this is. This is basically the financial model. It identifies the request for a budget commitment tonight for entry into the budget of $20,000 for step 2, and you can see phase 1 $54,000, phase 2 $47,000, phase 3 $47,000. So phase 1 and step 2 are in 2017, 2018 is phase 3, and 2018 is phase 2, and 2019 is phase 3, for a total amount of $168,000. The cash flow, in other words, as I mentioned, at the end of each step or phase, there'll be a council report and a request to release the funding for the next phase. You can see April 10th would be tonight. What is being asked is for $20,000 to finish step 2. And what is being asked is a budget commitment for the whole project. In July, there will be another council report to indicate to council the results of step 2 and asking for a release of funds for the next phase, and so on, for a total of $168,000. Did you want to add anything to that, Pam?
You'll notice that the budget is smaller than our last conversation, and that's because you'll see on the final slide that we've suggested interim gateway signs instead of the tall new ones, the complete rebuilds, at a considerable savings to the budget at this point. The wood signs will at some point fail. They won't last forever, but the interim signage that we've suggested for the 3 downtown gateways, that will give people more of a sense of arrival in downtown, because downtown is difficult to define visually, will give us that sense of destination that we're looking for, that's supported by our advertising and marketing and other projects that we do. So that we've put in with a shelf life, as it were, 5 to 10 years for each of those. Do you want to show them the final? Okay.
Okay, and I will proceed to. There's that, but let me. I will proceed. Find the. Never work this thing. Renderings. I'll show the rendering first of the original sign that was proposed. The gateway sign. Gateway rendering. So originally this was the rendering of the gateway signs that were proposed. One would be westbound into downtown.
McVickers, Alberni and Jensen, and then McMillan. Those where the 3 gateways are.
So this was the original gateway signs, and then I'll show you what is being proposed at this time, the interim. How do I want to open it? As soon as possible. How about that? How about that? We'll try that. There we go. Photo simulation. So this is the sign that's being proposed in an interim basis until this sign is no longer until it needs replacing. Anyways, those wooden posts. And it's very similar for the other gateway signs, the same thing. Yeah, so in other words, it's sticking with the structure that's out there, and instead of building a whole new gateway sign, work with the existing structure until it is no longer viable with this, and then at that point the money can be spent to upgrade it if council at the time feels as though they want to spend the money on that. And I think that's pretty much it. And I think we got the, so what we're looking, again, recap, what we're looking for is an approval of, to enter the required funding for the entire project in the budget. But this year, or not this year, this meeting tonight, looking for $20,000 to take it to the point where a report can be brought back to council to show you the details.
Well, first of all, I want to thank staff and the PDVA for working together on this. This is it's much clearer in my mind, and it gives us those critical steps that at a given point in time, especially with the public consultation, there might be some changes, and that's always good. And it's good to get the feedback that we need, you need from the public at large, and especially from the folk in the downtown, I would imagine. On that note, I'm going to turn it over to members of council. Are there any questions? So just to make it perfectly clear, for tonight, you're looking for an immediate approval of $20,000, and then the overall, all of the other phases, the commitment for money during those years, which you've listed on page number. Oh, here it is. Okay. So it's basically step 2 and then step 3, commitments for step 3. Now, I guess recognizing there could be some changes in step 3 as a result of step 2. I mean, somebody says, well, why don't you do this, and you think it's a good idea?
We're fairly confident that, well, we're extremely confident actually that the $265,000 is ample budget, includes a contingency. We do need a budget allocation for the entire amount. Obviously, things do and can change down the road, as with any capital project. But, for example, to go forward together with the city and endeavor to find grant funds, they need the backup that it's been budgeted for, that it's real. I've been through that with the RDN. They won't consider an application unless it's a real project. So we need project status. And one advantage is that when you go to tender, I mean, the fabricators need the certainty that that it's a real project, so you can achieve economies of scale and keep your costs down. And if there's no commitment to the project as a whole, there's a risk that you would end up with no system, because there's a logical pattern to how this works. And none of us want to waste dollars.
Okay, members of council, Councillor Beale, go ahead, you have questions.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you very much for the presentation. If I understand these last comments, Pam, it might be possible to actually apply for some grants which would further reduce the cost of this project to the city. And a second part to that, if that is a possibility, is the city able to watch out for some and look for some grant opportunities, or would this be strictly in the purview of the PDVA?
I would think that we'd be on the lookout together and try to reduce the costs for both of our organizations. As a one-person office, I'm certainly not that nimble that I can multitask to the extent that would be, I guess, wished by some people. We have a lot of other projects on our plate as well. So I'm pretty sure that the City of Parksville is much more aware of grant opportunities than I am, and I would really anticipate that we would be doing that in collaboration as well.
Any other members of council? Councillor Oates and then Councillor Salter.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the added detail. I appreciate it. Gives me a comfort level that there's a discussion happening with staff as well. With respect to the amount that the budget request went down, it went down by $42,000. Is that, and that's because is it 3 signs? Okay, so that would be like $14,000 a sign, and if the lifespan of those signs, if the expected life expectancy of those signs is only another couple of years, 4 or 5 years, would it be more cost effective to do it now with the project instead of replacing it later?
We would love the original concept gateway signs. We were hearing people's, frankly, wince points around the total budget cost, and we're looking at an option for reducing that. There was, I think, some feedback that the supports for those signs are perfectly fine now. And so this was simply an option. We can go to an interim sign that could last 5 years, maybe a bit longer. But you'll notice that the gorgeous wood sign on the way in, you know, from coming south, from the news, yeah, the exit up south here, is already starting to deteriorate. You can tell from your vehicle that the finishing is coming off. I don't know how old that sign is, but it's not looking very good right now. Wood supports and installations are not the best choice for our climate, regardless of whether they grew here. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your information tonight. I have several questions here. Number one, when did those signs that we do have, when were they put up? Do you remember?
It was well before my time, Your Worship.
So they're wood, so they can be refinished. So, and does anyone know what the cost of those signs were?
Mr. Butterworth.
If I may, Your Worship. I don't know exactly. I think there's more than 3 signs altogether, but we paid $40,000 for the signs at the time. But I think there's more than 3 of them. I think we have some other ones too, but I'm not exactly sure of the number.
I just want to speak to that. So we have those signs. They're wood. They can be refinished. They're paid for, and they've got the little logo, the sand dollar logo on them. And so I'm just not getting why we would need new signs. It makes no sense to me to spend more money on signs when we have them, and they're actually, I think they're quite beautiful. When I come in, to me they're West Coast, and I wouldn't want to see them change. So I don't see a need to change something that I think is already beautiful and looks really, really lovely to us. That's number one. Number two, when I look at this, and I have to say I've had a lot of feedback. We all have had a lot of feedback. I haven't seen a lot of positive feedback for this, and I think part of it is for the locals, the question is, what is this doing for us? Not a whole lot. We're going to have kiosks. We're going to have more signs. We have a beautiful city here. If you're wondering where the downtown is, you just have to look across. You'll see the beach, and then you look the other side, and you'll see the stores, and you're downtown. People have been finding their way here I've been here for over 50 years. I won't say how many, but I've been here long enough to know that tourists have found their way to the park every year. They don't seem to have any trouble finding it. They seem to find, if they want something to eat, something to drink, they find their way there too. This seems to me, I'm all for revitalization. I think we do need to do some work in a downtown core, absolutely. Signs and kiosks and wayfinding. I think this is over. People have cell phones. They have GPS in their cars. They can get a map from the hotel. This makes no sense to me. We were up in Campbell River just this weekend. Easy to find whatever it is you're looking for with your cell phone, wherever you are, in your car, in a restaurant, on the street. none of the expenditure here doesn't make sense. Yes, I agreed as well that we spend money, that we take a look at this, because we were listening and we were looking to see what is it that your proposal is. When I see the proposal, I think I don't see the need for this. It's the city helping to support, helping to pay for advertisement for businesses in the downtown area. There's businesses all over this city. They're not going to be in on this. None of it makes sense. I think if I needed to find a vacuum cleaner store that sold vacuum cleaner bags, I can go on the internet and find that in 5 minutes. And I can certainly find the park, and I can certainly find my way around this town and find whatever it is I need with my cell phone. So I can't support this. We know that we're going to be short in 2025. Our budget is going to be in the red. Spending this money now, spending tax dollars now, makes no sense. If we're saying that we want to be prepared and we want to plan to not be in that situation, or at least if we are in that situation, to not be as deep in debt then as we're already projecting we will be. I can't support this for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Salter. Councillor Beale.
Can I respond?
Councillor Burton, no? Councillor Beale, you had your hand up. Yes, you want to comment?
Just as some additional information, yes, the Parksville Downtown Business Association is in place to promote economic development and the businesses within our downtown. We spend a lot of money marketing our downtown. And many of these wayfinding devices, I mean, we've provided you with information on the economic impact of state-of-the-art wayfinding. It has a significant economic boost. Retail can count on an increase of 18%. We think a strong downtown economy is super important to the city of Parksville. These devices will, as all our marketing tools have so far and will continue to have, push people to our business directory, to our over 230 businesses downtown. So when they're searching for a specific service or whatnot, they will find downtown first. So yes, there will be that near-field technology incorporated with the mapping.
Councillor Beale, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Worship. I'd just like to, first of all, start by with the comment that I actually quite like the look of having the wooden supports. I think it ties in nicely with the entrance to the city and some of the neighborhood parks, although I think that those are going to change. But nonetheless, it gives defines the downtown area with a different look and a different set of colors, and it makes me think of so many other urban centers that you visit, whether it be Quadra Village or Cook Street Village or downtown in Nanaimo, and when you're coming down and you know that, oh, I'm in the downtown area, and it's nice. It defines it has that neighborhood feel to it and can certainly add some color and some information. I understand that the wayfinding will include more than, signs, but also help identify areas that really do need more information for locals and for visitors. And I think keeping in mind that many of the residents here, we have many like myself and others here who are longtime residents, and there are still things that surprise me, and I'm not clear about whether it's private or public property or whatever, because it's not well indicated. And many people who come here in the last couple of years, and so I think are still finding and exploring. I do like the idea of getting something in place for our downtown area. I would hope as well that if we can strengthen and really define that downtown area, that it will encourage businesses to concentrate in that area so that we don't end up with increasing sprawl. So I would like to support this and see us get beyond, yet another consultation about something that we could do and actually see some things go into place.
I still get the question every summer about where is the downtown, so I think Councillor Salter had her hand up, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Oates.
I don't know how those people coming to the sandcastles find their way then if they don't know where the downtown is. I've never seen them trying to build sandcastles anywhere except on the beach. So it's, but you know what I would say to the fact that there might be this thing in other larger cities is, you know, far be it from me. They've got a larger population. They've got a larger tax base. We don't. We're a small community, number one. It's not hard to find the businesses that we have in this community. It's just not difficult. That's number one. Number two, we don't have the dollars to just toss around here. If we're going to revitalize, and revitalization to me supports everybody, all our 12,000 people. That's who it supports. So it would do something to beautify the downtown. Adding signs and putting up kiosks and putting up signs and putting up more junk only impacts that gorgeous view of the ocean and all the other views that we have. So it wouldn't matter who it was that wanted to do that to impact. I mean, you know, you all saw that note from Arliss, right? Sign. We don't need all that. We don't need it. We know where we're going. I'm going to Ottawa in the summer. I don't have a wayfinding thing that I can do. I already know what I'm doing when I get there, and I have made my plans, and I did all of that in my kitchen, you know, on my computer. I don't need to utilize a $200,000 or $300,000 wayfinding system to do it. I've got the capabilities right up here to be able to find where it is I want to go and what it is I want to do. I don't agree with spending this money on this project. Should we spend money revitalizing? Yes, I think we should, because I think there's a lot of work to be done in the downtown, and I think this money can be better used doing something else, not wayfinding, not signs. We don't need it. We're a small community, and we don't need it.
Thank you, Councillor Salter. I'm going to go to Councillor Oates, then Councillor Burden.
Thank you, Worship. I move that the budget be amended to include the funding request for the downtown pedestrian wayfinding program.
Comments, Councillor Burden?
I'd like to speak to it since I moved.
Go ahead. Yes, you can.
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe that, you know, revitalization of the downtown is something that's very important. It's something that certainly was an election issue when all of us ran. At the time, I was asked a question, what would I do to revitalize downtown? What I said I would do is I'd just remove any barriers that council has up by way of policy. I don't know what the secret is to revitalizing downtown, or any downtown for that matter. If I did, perhaps I'd be a rich man. But I don't know what that is. So I leave it to the people who are most affected by it, for them to make the decisions. And there's been a lot of work, as I understand it, done on this concept of revitalizing downtown. And people have done an awful lot of research and background work to get to the point that we are here tonight. I expressed some concerns when this came up at the 15th meeting. My concerns at the time were about the detail and the effect and how that would marry in with our staff and how it would affect the city's budgets going forward. Never meant to open up the debate about whether or not this idea was a good idea or not. I believe that if we approve this budget tonight, the public will let us know in that open house whether or not it's a bad idea. It's been in the public forum now for quite some time, depending on your perspective, years, or maybe people could argue as little as weeks if it came up on the March 15th. In any event, my emails and phone hasn't been ringing off the hook with negative comments about what we're contemplating on doing. I'm comfortable after the presentation I heard tonight that staff is aware of what's going on. I haven't heard anything negative coming from staff. I don't see any red flags coming up. And again, I think the public will let us know. And unless someone has a better idea, I think we should empower the folks that have put in the work to get us to this point, and let's see how their idea resonates with the public. My personal opinion of it is not as important as what the opinion of the people that pay the freight here, and those are the taxpayers of the City of Parksville. So let's enable this program. Let's get it out there into the public. If we get a backlash at that point, like anything else, we can certainly reconsider it at that point. If it goes out there and it gets traction with the public, then we have the comfort to be able to release the money as we go along. I thank the group for working with our staff and getting us to this tonight.
Councillor Burton.
Thank you. You're a unique individual, Councillor Salter. I see roughly 25,000 people through the visitor center on an annual basis, and I can't keep track of the number of people that ask me where the downtown is. I support this project. I was a little bit concerned about the numbers. I'm still, I know what it costs to build the entrance sign, and I'm still somewhat mindful of the amounts, but I certainly want to see it go forward to the next step. And I guess more than anything, I want to see us start the implementation of the 1996 report on downtown revitalization. It's time. Adding the wayfinding is the first step along the road, and I look forward to the next steps.
When echoing Councillor Oates' comments about when we ran for office, I know that downtown revitalization was high on the list of my agenda for what I wanted to do for downtown revitalization. And I think that at that time, when we had the meeting, not many building owners showed up, but I think that the message I got was you've got to put your money where your mouth is. So I think it's time for the city. We do things like infrastructure replacement and renewal, but I think if we contribute to this, then we can say to the building owners, you know, we're doing this for you, so we may be able to have a different discussion at some point in time with the building owners. And there are some building owners that have done some great work downtown. On that note, the only thing I feel awkward about, Mrs. Comas, is I'm about to call the vote, and I haven't asked members of the audience for their input, but members of the audience know that who stands where in terms of what's going to be approved. So I'm prepared to call the vote unless you can guide me otherwise.
No, Your Worship, you may call the vote. The public will have the opportunity to participate in the public engagement process.
Okay, that's included in the project. So I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. That'll be a recorded vote? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Just for clarification, I believe the effect of that motion is that it be included in the budget. The budget is yet to be approved.
So members of the audience, don't despair. You'll get a chance to make your comments later on. Okay, Mrs. Lovegrove. We're now getting into the draft final 2017-2021 municipal budget and financial plan. So would you please give us the background on that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Welcome to the April 10th presentation of the 2017 to 2021 draft final financial plan. Tonight we'll just look at each of the funds, the 2017 to 2021 budget changes since the last presentation we had on March 29th, and then look at the projected surpluses for each of the funds. So for the general fund, we started by updating the population estimates. The 2016 census figures are in, so we revised our model to make sure that we updated the population estimates. Property taxes increased by $50,000 a year due to we underestimated new construction assessments. Friends Road, there was an adjustment of the gas tax of $90,000 when from the first presentation there were some ins and outs, and that $90,000 got missed and it was surplus to requirements, so it's been removed. And then the last change was we included $224,100, which was a council resolution from March 6th, which is including a contingency amount for the operations hangar project.
Councillor Beal found her copy. Okay.
So, notwithstanding the discussion that was just been held, the other items to be considered in this budget that are not included in the budget is the wayfinding system. We have noted $210,000 there. Tonight they've just announced it was $168,000. And also the additional RCMP officers. The discussion for that is still outstanding as well.
So you didn't know until tonight that 2010 is now 168?
That's
okay.
Correct.
Just if council will permit me, I believe at the last meeting that we had on the budget, we were dropping anything to do with extra RCMP officers. That we felt that was not on the budget. So I can safely say that those two items for $61,000 and $244,000 have been eliminated. Am I correct on that, members of council? Anybody questioning that? Pardon me? We're not including any. That's what yeah. Okay. So that's out. Okay. Thank you. Mrs. Comas.
Yes, Your Worship, there was no formal direction provided to staff not to include it. Council asked for the OIC of the RCMP detachment to provide a report to council providing statistics and activity statistics and information on how additional members would be utilized. I had a conversation with Staff Sergeant Pelche, and he is quite happy to provide all of that information to council. But what we were going to do based on the tenor of council's discussion, and it's entirely up to council whether we have guessed right or not, is that we would do that probably later in the summer in anticipation of the 2018 provisional budget discussions. So unless council wishes to give us specific direction at this point in time, that is how we are moving forward.
Thank you, Mrs. Comas. Could I have a motion then that we reconsider this? We leave it off the budget for now and reconsider it when the commanding officer makes a presentation to council in the next several months. Yes, Councillor Burton, and then Councillor.
Well, we passed a motion at the last meeting to ask for the report. So do we need a motion to leave it off?
Your Worship, no, you don't need a motion to leave it off. We actually didn't pass a motion. You made a request of staff, and we took that back to to the OIC. But if council, at this point in time, council can direct us to either wait until the 2018 budget and have further discussions then, or to include it in 2017. That it has not been provided to staff in a formal.
Okay, members of council, what's your pleasure? I'll go to Councillor Salter first.
Well, quite frankly, I'm prepared to support this. I think if we need emergency services, and if our emergency services are saying they're short-staffed, I'm prepared to support it. I mean, that goes for police, that goes for fire, and that goes for paramedics. I don't think this is something that's really, really important. It's the safety of the people who live in our community. So if they're stating that they need an officer, I'm prepared to support that. I don't know that this is something that you just push off and and hope that it's all going to be good until next year or another year or whatever. So I'm prepared to support one officer.
Well, looking at the screen, Councillor Salter, when you mean by one officer, a half a year at 2017 is $61,103.
That would be for this year, and then ongoing.
The two officers from 2018 onward are $244,000. Okay. Councillor Burton, thank you.
So the request made last week referred to defining the need so that we're really certain of what that is. And until I see the need defined based on current crime statistics and the current operational needs, I'm not prepared to support anything. So I would like to see us push this off until 2018 so that we can have a good hard look at it. And I haven't really heard a direct request for more officers other than when Staff Sergeant Peltier was here. I believe he was asked if he would require more manpower, and he indicated that he'd always like more manpower, but there was no criteria relating to that request.
You want to turn that into a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we not include any additional manpower for the RCMP in the 2017 budget, and based on the report that we received from Staff Sergeant Peltier, make consideration for the 2018 budget.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Beal. Further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. That's carried. Thank you. Okay, so carry on.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the reserve balances right now, without the wayfinding amounts in there, start off projected at the end of 2017 was $6 million, and at the end of the 5-year financial plan in 2021 will be projected to be $3.4 million. The following 5 years still look like we need to look at things later on in 2023, 2024. But for the 5-year plan, we are certainly in the black. That's it for the general fund. Are there any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment about concern for 2025. Mr. Butterworth, in your forecasts here, are you looking at some of the construction that has yet to begun or hasn't been completed for new developments in the city? We've got a number of things that are pending.
We do have new construction in our budget. As to whether it's as much as what will be constructed, I'm not sure. It's based on past history averages, and I think over the 5-year plan we have over $100 million in new construction over the 5 years of our plan. Now, if it comes in at $200 million, then we're a little under, but need a crystal ball to really predict that at this point in time.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Lovegrove? Councillor Salt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I asked this earlier regarding the grant, the $5,000, which they still have not yet received. So at what point can they receive that $5,000, the grant? It's a budget. It's a line item for the grant.
I'm not sure why they haven't received it, Your Worship.
They haven't received it
Because we put in a requisition to process the check.
I was at the Brant thing on Saturday night, and they have not received anything.
I will check into it in the morning, Your Worship.
Thank you. And so I have one more thing as well, and that was that Mr. Figuera had requested, I think it was $100,000 that you could just kind of keep, somewhere, and then if you needed it, throughout the year, you could just utilize those dollars to do things with. So we never really came back to that, and I want to come back to that now. So I've been thinking about this actually, and I don't really think that giving you $100,000 to just kind of utilize, not that, I mean, I certainly have confidence in your ability, but I think it is our job to be releasing those dollars after we, as far as budget items, we do, but there's no budget item for just $100,000 to sort of to use if you find yourself in a situation where you think you might need those dollars. So I'm wondering where is that? Where is that $100,000 in this budget?
Mrs. Comas, would you care to answer that? I'm going to ask Mrs. Comas.
Before Mr. Figuera does, Your Worship, I would just like to clarify something. The purpose of that account was for works in addition to contracted works. So for instance, if we were doing road works, and in the process of doing the road work found that we needed a new water line, then we would have budgetary funds to draw from in order to undertake construction of the new water line in the most cost-effective means possible, which is when the road is open, rather than repairing the road, closing it up, and then going back 3 months later to dig the road open again to do the water main. So that was the purpose of that account. It wasn't discretionary for just anything. It was specifically for works that came about as a result of capital projects, unforeseen works that came about as a result of capital projects. And I just wanted to clarify.
So I think I did understand that. Yeah, I think I do understand that that was the reason for that. What my thoughts are is that, number one, I'm not going, how am I going to know when Mr. Figueroa determines that now is the time to pay for a pipe or a ditch or whatever it is that he wants to do, whatever he feels, and that's not what he wants to do, it's what he thinks needs to be done at the time. How am I as a councillor going to be able to say, well, yeah, I know where that money went, because we know what happened there. I didn't even know that we had a hangar that started at 500,000, went to 2.2 million in a matter of 3 years. I need to be able to speak to the dollars that I'm saying yes or no to. I have to be able to speak to that, and I can't speak to money that I don't know where it's going. Now, I don't think that he's buying a new car. I know he's not, but I don't know how he's going to utilize it. It wouldn't be until after the fact, and so I don't know that that's our mandate there, to be providing dollars and then learning after the fact what it was that we had. Or had not supported, and if we didn't support it, then that's. I don't think that we're managing our fiduciary mandate by doing that.
My understanding of the situation, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Comas, is this is in case if you're physically working on a project and the project is about to either wind up or come across something that wasn't known. Something was hidden in the ground or whatever the case may be, you might need that extra money. But is that, Mrs. Comas, did you want to comment?
Well, Your Worship, staff can certainly, if council is concerned about knowing when that money is spent and for what it is, staff can certainly report on that to council when we provide council with reports on our capital projects, and we bring forward a report that says we completed this project and it was under budget or it was over budget, and we give council an accounting of the financial status of those projects. When that is done, we can certainly provide council with information on anything that came up during the course of that project that required us to do additional work and how much was spent on that additional work. So we have no problem with providing an account.
In the case of dealing with inanimate objects, and as we do in construction, it's impossible to say, well, here's what kind of money we think we're going to need for these unforeseen things. Unforeseen is unforeseen. Okay, Mr. Figueroa.
Yeah, and if thank you, Mr. Mayor, and if I may add to that, this fund would not accumulate over the years. It would be 100,000 identified. Any unused funds would be reallocated every year. It wouldn't accumulate over the years. So the idea is to have a little bit there in the kitty in the event that we have an unforeseen situation. We've had water mains, and we do have a similar fund in water mains and for sanitary sewers as well. And we are in situations and times when replacement works driven by a developer are being done, and we find out that the situation in terms of, say, a water main is a lot more dire than we originally understood, and that while the contractor's there, additional works really should be done. Otherwise, we'd have to go right back in and with a different contractor and do the same work. So, anyway. Thank you.
Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I don't want to just keep going around, but just a couple things. At least this is just coming from as I've been thinking this through. One is that I guess I don't have the confidence, and it's not Mr. Figuera. I know he knows what he's doing, but I did agree with the Wildflower Project. There was a $20,000 down payment. It was supposed to be kept by the city. We lost $19,000 of that. That makes me uncomfortable. So when we're not on it, and we wouldn't be on this, it wouldn't be until after the fact that we learned it. If Mr. Figuera believes that he needs extra money, or not Mr. Figuera, if anybody believes that they need extra money, then perhaps that's what needs to happen up front. And those dollars need to be utilized, and or a specific accounting of those dollars, because when we get our budgets that are this thick, I can tell you I can't get through all of that. I can't do it, and I can't tell you the specifics. I can hone in on a few things, which I do on the big stuff, but I miss a lot of things because the budget is that big and it is not specific. So I'm not comfortable with it. I think if more money is required, we're here. Come and ask. We'll decide at that point if we want to, give you $50,000 for a ditch or a pipe or whatever it is you need. But that is our job. That's our job. We're supposed to be doing that. And so by saying to staff, you go ahead and do it, we're taking the burden off ourselves or putting it on them. And I don't think we should be doing that.
My understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, staff, my understanding is that this is money, there's a project underway, the project has been awarded, the project's underway. We get to a certain point in time in the project and whoops, something is unforeseen, unknown has been found. And there's an extra 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or $50,000 is required. The project is ongoing and it's required to keep the project moving along to completion. So what I understand is it's not always possible to know this up front. This is something that could happen after the fact. Am I correct in that? And this is what this is for. And Mrs. Comas has just told us that if it happens after the fact, you would come back to council and explain why.
That, if I may, Your Worship, yes, that is the case. We're in situations at times when we have a contractor that's mobilized, they got equipment on site, something's discovered, and it's not like they can walk away and remobilize later on at the next scheduled council meeting. Approval would happen, but it's not like a contractor can sit there for 2 weeks and wait for action to be taken. So that's kind of the idea.
Okay. Councillor, Mrs. Comas, and Councillor Beale had her hand up first. I'll come back to you.
Your Worship, I just wanted to clarify, with respect to Wildflower, we didn't lose money. We spent money on legal fees, and we are in the process of trying to recoup those fees. So it wasn't that the money was lost, per se.
Councillor Beale and Councillor Salter.
Yes, thank you. And Mr. Figuera can confirm or this if it's correct, but I seem to recall that during the Temple Street work that there was a culvert that was discovered that perhaps wasn't on the as-built, and of course some of the areas in our city have been worked on a long time ago, and as one comes along there, the as-builts might not be exactly as anticipated. So I think this makes perfect sense. I could think about situations when I've worked in my own yard, whether it be on drainage or another aspect where I've come across something, and of course I am the one doing the work, so I can say, oh, okay, obviously we need to take care of this at the same time. It would be silly to do otherwise. I also doubt that, I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but with the $100,000 that is over the course of the year, it is not necessarily the case that all of that would go into a single project, but things that might come up. And I understand also, finally, that something like this has been in place in the past. And again, correct me if I'm wrong about that. And how did that work for you?
Mr. Figuera?
If I may, Your Worship. Yeah, something, can't remember exactly when it was taken out of the budget, but a number of years ago we did have it. We did have an amount of money in there so that we can respond in these situations.
I'll give you the last word on this, Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I do want to respond to Wildflower. The $20,000, as it was given to council, was that was a down payment from Wildflower. It was not refundable, and it was certainly not to pay their fees. It was used to pay their fees. That money's gone. It's now gone to collections. We might get 50 cents on the dollar. We're not getting $20,000 back. Those dollars were not supposed to be used to pay for those fees. And I have the email that says so from Fred. So that's Wildflower. That does impact my confidence. Number two, with regard to the contractor and possibly going over or whatever, that contractor has to give you an estimate. And contractors know what they're doing. They know that there's a possibility that they may go over, and they estimate for that. So when they're giving you an estimate and they think it's going to cost them whatever, $20,000, they're going to estimate higher because in case of issues that may or may not come up. So that's already part of what the contractor does when they're giving you that estimate. So I cannot support giving $100,000 just to hold there in case something happens. If you need more money, we can have an emergency meeting and we can get it for you if it's that dire. And if it's not that dire, then we can wait till the next regular meeting. So I don't think we should be doing this. I think this is taking the work that we should be doing out of our hands. We weren't elected to do that. We're elected to do our work.
Okay, thank you. At this point in time, if members of council don't have any further questions on this particular page or concerns, I'm going to ask the audience if they would like to comment on the 2017 to 2026 projected general fund unrestricted surplus. No? Okay, on that basis, nobody has any comments. I would like... Pardon me? No, use your microphone. I can't hear you.
I'm just wondering if I should make a motion on that then, the $100,000.
Sure, go ahead and make your motion.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that we do not provide the extra $100,000 for the manager to keep aside in case he needs the money for a project that he's working on.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? You'll second it? Okay, discussion.
I really don't have much more to say. I think
pretty well said all you're going to say.
Pretty much done.
All right, I'm going to call, anybody has any other comments? I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? That motion is defeated. Okay, at this point in time, so that we can get ready to have staff start preparing a budget, time is moving on. I'd like a motion to prepare the budget for 2018 when it comes to this particular overall. Yes. Being premature?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I think we still should go through the water fund as well, and then you can make a motion for the whole budget.
Okay, thank you. Okay, move on, Mrs. Lovegrove, and we'll go on to the water utility fund.
Thank you, Your Worship. The water utility fund, there was just a few more changes in the funding for the ERWS project. At the previous meeting, the information I was given was $5.6 million in grants. Excuse me, it turned out to be $5.4 million in grants, and it was allocated to areas that were different from the first round of information that I got. So the changes were basically all due to the funding from the Canada Infrastructure Grant for the ERWS project. The slide in front of you just shows the changes from March 15th. The handout that you have in your package shows the changes from the provisional budget that you approved back in January. So if you're thinking the numbers are changed a little bit, that's why. This is from the last presentation. Your handout showed from the provisional budget, the changes. So that was the changes for the water fund. So the water fund remains pretty healthy. We're projecting a surplus of $4.1 million at the end of 2017 and a surplus of $2.5 at the end of the 5-year plan in 2021. And the following 5 years still remain in a good, healthy position from 1.7 to 2.7 over the 5 years. And that's the changes for the water fund. Are there any questions?
Any questions from members of council regarding the water fund?
Okay.
Any questions from members of the audience regarding the projected water fund unrestricted surplus deficit? Okay, Mrs. Lovegrove.
So onto the
We're going into the
sewer
sewer.
utility fund, there was actually no changes at all for the sewer utility fund. So their projected surplus is still remaining very healthy at $2.7 million at the end of 2017 to $1.7 million at the end of the 5-year plan in 2021. And the following 4 years are still healthy, even though 2025 does dip a little bit below the recommended $1 million mark, but we certainly come back in 2026.
Any questions from members of council with regard to the sewer fund? Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, it's water. I'm just wondering, I remember at the last meeting when we were looking at someone who wanted to add some densification there, and I had asked, well, where are we going to get the water from? And I was advised that there was going to be some kind of a review, or somebody was going to do something as far as that. So, first of all, what's that? Like, is there a cost involved in that? And if so, do we know how much? And when will that review happen? Because I see that we've got more things coming at us as far as more building and more densification, and, you know, we still have the same volume of water in the river, so.
Well, I know I can
wondering.
answer part of that. I know that the existing water treatment, the new water treatment plant we're building will be good for, 10 or 12 years, because we didn't get the sufficient funding from the provincial and federal government to do the 2025-year one. So within 10 or 12 years, we're probably looking at an expansion of the existing water treatment plant. But you're the expert, so I'll let you deal on that.
Through the mayor to Councillor Salter, I'm trying to remember the name of the development. I recall the conversation.
On Despard.
It's on 151 Despard. Oh, Insights. Yeah, Insights. That's right. I believe at that meeting, I did come back and try to clarify my position was that, yeah, there was a water study done, and it was found that there is sufficient water available for that project. So a study was done, and there is officially enough water to support that.
So just a follow-up? Well, because that's kind of interesting to me, because we've been on restrictions for the past couple of years now. So we're putting more building in, and that's not the only place. We've got a whole lot more coming. In fact, we're all excited about all the building we're going to have, and that's not making sense to me, that we're going to have less ability to water and less people being able to have gardens in their backyards, because we're going to have more people utilizing the water that is finite. How could we have more water if we have more building? I'm just wondering about that study, that there must be a cost for this study that you're going to do.
Mr. Butterworth, and then Councillor Burden.
Thank you, Your Worship. The new intake that's being constructed, that's supposed to be finished in the end of 2018, is going to greatly enhance the amount of water we can extract from the river. Our current intake, again, I'm speaking, I guess, for the Director of Operations here, is old and outdated and very inefficient right now. And the replacement, moving it upriver, we're allowed to extract more water from the river than we currently do, but our intake just won't handle it. Our new intake will handle it, and we'll be extracting more water in the summertime from the river, and actually all year round when the turbidity is not too bad.
Councillor Burden, no?
Well, it's always been my understanding from the discussions that we've had that the restrictions have to do with turbidity, and the restrictions have to do with being able to use the river water in the summer months, and the turbidity countering that and not being totally available. So, and it's always been my understanding from all of the presentations that we've had that we have a ton of water, but we have difficulty with distribution systems, and it's my belief that the new water intake and the new water filtration facility is going to deal with those issues. And you said 10 to 12 years. That's the first time I've heard that. I thought we were well beyond that. The OCP calls for a build out of 25,000 people by 15 years from now, I believe, 25 years from now, 25 years from now, and that the current plan is supposed to manage that. Is that?
Just to bring you up to date, Councillor Burton, we wanted from the federal and provincial government, we wanted somewhere in the realm of $24 million. I got a call in March of 2015 to rush to Victoria because they looked at the demands that were being made by all the cities on Vancouver Island and all the cities in BC, and they said, we can't give you that kind of money, you're going to have to scale down your project. So we scaled down the project, and in my recollection, it was somewhere between 10 and 12 years. And at that point in time, we knew that we know now that we're going to have to, most likely, depending on how it goes, most likely expand the capacity of that water treatment plant. So that's, oh, no, not at all, no. I have Councillor Beale and then Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Worship. I was actually going to say much as Mr. Butterworth was saying, that my understanding is that there actually is a quantity of water, but during the summer when it's extracted from the river, the actual intake does not allow for the amount of water that the flow, it's just not there. But also, I understand, even though that we're having all this rain and lovely spring weather, that we have gone into the month of April and that we just automatically go to a certain level of conservation. And I think that just helps all of us be more mindful of water consumption, period.
Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I just want to say a couple things. I live by the river, and I'm in Arrington, so I'm way upriver from you folks. And I can tell you that in the summertime, there's hardly any water in that river. So with or without it, that huge intake, when there's no water to go through it, there's no water to go through it. And when we continue to add and the population and the study, I thought there was going to be a study, so I was hoping to see that in the budget. So the fact that we have the build out, but we don't actually, sounds like there isn't going to be a study. It's certainly not going to be, we're not paying for it because it's not in here. Regardless of whether we have a big intake, whether we have a new water treatment plant, if we continue to build out, we're not going to have the water to supply that population. That's it, full stop. And as far as turbidity, that intake is below the clay banks. And if anyone stands in front of that clay bank for a minute, 2 minutes, you're going to watch it falling to pieces in front of you. That bank is disintegrating as we speak. And so that creates the turbidity. The water isn't there, and that's why I was hoping for a study and some money in this budget to pay for this study to find out where the water is going to come from. 2 years ago, I was up at the dam, and we were below the amount of water that Parksa was allowed to have. We were below our allotted amount because DFO takes X amount. The rest is for us. We were below that. We need a study. We do need a study. We need to find out where this water is going to come from.
Part of your comments with regard to turbidity, I'm not qualified to talk about that, but I know that if Mr. Squire were here this evening, he could comment on it because there's been extensive studies about that. One of the things about the lack of sufficient water or the lack of water in the summertime is that by taking water out of the river at least 8 months a year, when the treatment plant is up and running, that'll give our aquifers a chance to recharge, and that'll be a big help. And also, we've put it on the back burner for the time being, but we're looking at the aquifer storage and recovery system that exists from New Jersey to Florida that's been working for the last 50 years, and we've done some experiments with it here, and we're not finished with that. We'll have a look at that. It's not very expensive, but these are all things that are, as far as I know, that staff under Mr. Squire's direction are looking at over time in terms of, first things first, we get the water treatment plant up and running, and we'll be able to take water out of the river 12 months a year, and then we'll go from there. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Worship. I'm pretty sure the water plant's approved, so the 2014 is gone. That argument's over. I don't know why you're giving it traction and allowed us to debate something that's been debated. The opinions of somebody versus the expert reports, right? We've already been there. I have a question related to the budget with respect to the recent retroactive pay increases that were provided to the RCMP, some of them going back to January 1st, 2015. Are they going to come after, is the Solicitor General now going to come after us to make up that? Because it was a 1.25% increase January
1st, 2015, and this is all retroactive. Another 1.25 January 1st, 2016, and then a 2.3 market adjustment in April 1st of 2016. This money is this being funded by the feds, or are they going to come to, if they're not going to come to us retroactively, do our numbers need to be adjusted going forward for the RCMP contract? That concerns me more than whether or not there's a clay bank or not.
Mr. Butterworth?
Thank you, Your Worship. With respect to the RCMP, at this point, I haven't been given any numbers on what the adjustments will be. I'm sure they are going to come after us to fund it. We do have, at the end of the year, they were billing us for their retroactive amount, and then they reversed it. I didn't reverse it in our books. I left it on our books as a contingency. So we do have some money that I accrued at the end of last year to fund part of this. I'm not sure how much the amount's going to be or whether there's enough there or not. They also, on their current billing, have increased the rate on what they estimated it was going to be. So I think currently we're already paying roughly what the new rate is. It may not be exactly, but they do increase their rates every year. So I'm hopeful we'll be close, but I don't know the numbers yet at this point in time. So.
Follow-up?
Thank you, Worship. With respect to future projections for our CMP funding, do you contemplate population projections? Because I know when we hit that 15,000 population, then we go to the 90% as opposed to the whatever it is we pay now, 70%. So is that contemplated when you do your future financial plan?
Yes, it's in our financial plan. In 2031, our population projections show us hitting 15,000, and we've got $600,000 in there to go up to the 90%.
Okay, we've gotten away from the sewer fund, so I'm going to finalize the sewer fund by asking if there's any more questions about the sewer fund from members of council. And if there's not, members of the audience, any comments or questions about the projected sewer fund? Okay, so seeing none, before I call for a vote or call for a motion to prepare the 2018-2017 budget. I'm moving ahead a little bit here. Any questions from the audience about anything regarding the budget this evening? Okay, can I have a motion from a member of council to have staff prepare the 2017 budget? Moved by Councillor Oates, seconded by Councillor Burden. Any discussion on that motion? Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Your Worship. For clarification, would this be the final budget, or would this still be somewhat provisional? Is there still some flexibility since we're not up at the deadline? Or
I'm going to let Mrs. Comas. My answer is no, but I'm going to let Mrs. Comas answer that.
Yes, Your Worship. Once council adopts the final budget bylaw, then it's final. However, budgets can always be amended. So what will happen now is that with this motion, staff will come back possibly on the 19th of April, but possibly, depending upon Mr. Butterworth's schedule, either the 19th of April or the 1st of May, for 3 readings of the budget bylaw. And then the following meeting for the final adoption of the budget bylaw. If council has any major changes or things, it would be preferable to have those before we come forward with the bylaw. But council is permitted by legislation to amend the budget at any time, so.
Okay. Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify, though, that so for the $100,000, I'm sure it's going to pass. For the $100,000 that we're going to be giving to our manager, can we have some specifics about how those dollars are spent over the year? And when I mean specifics, like not, I mean really specific. Well, it was, we were on this street, and this was how much that we had to add to that project, whatever it was. Can we get that? Do we have? Can we have confidence that we'll get those?
I'll take that as part of the budget question, or part of the motion to prepare the budget. Mrs. Comas.
Well, Your Worship, we would do that anyways. I mean, staff always report out on capital projects and how we have done. So we can certainly provide that information to council. It's not a problem.
Okay. Seeing no